So my name is Troy Murray, and I go by TYP. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I live in Los Angeles, California right now.
What's with the TYP?
What's with the TYP? TYP kind of came from, doesn't really stand for anything, but I know why I made it was at the place I was at in my life when I started making art again. I was not very proud of my name and didn't really want to put my name on anything. Also kind of wanted that privacy, like I kind of wanted to be isolated from, I was in like a pretty vulnerable spot and I just didn't want people knowing what I was doing or putting my name on stuff. So I came up with something that I could just sign my artwork with that didn't have my name. It came from all my friends were calling me Pencils because I was drawing all the time. And so I took the T at the beginning of Troy, the Y at the end of Troy, and then P for Pencils. So, and then I just liked the way the letters looked together. I liked the signature. So I just started to run with that. Beginning, probably when I was like 5. Yeah, 4 or 5. You'd have to ask my mom, but I think I was like 5. And then I used to draw a lot as a kid. From probably like 5 to 12, I was drawing a lot. Kind of had this progression of like, started drawing Dragon Ball Z characters first. Loved Dragon Ball Z. And my mom let me draw them like all over my walls in my room. So my room was just covered in Dragon Ball Z characters. Then I kind of moved to like athletes. I started painting all the Red Wings players, or drawing all the Red Wings players. And then my family was traveling a lot when I was younger, and I would do this thing where I would look across the aisle from me, and I would sketch whoever looked the most interesting to me, and then give it to them at the end of the flight. So it kind of sounds creepy, but I was a kid, so I think about if I did that now, they'd be like, "You're just looking at me this whole flight." But yeah, that was kind of like, those are the main things I can remember drawing as a kid, and then getting in trouble. Teachers wouldn't let me turn my work in if it had doodles all around it, because I used to just cover around the work and then leave all the work empty. So yeah, those are my like main moments of me remembering drawing as a kid. I just started losing interest in a lot of stuff that I was interested in as a kid, probably around 13, 14. That was when I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and girls, and I just got interested in other things, you know. And so I grew up playing hockey my whole life, big in other sports as well, but hockey kind of was the main one, and they made us quit all the other sports so we didn't get hurt. So, you know, I was playing hockey, I was drawing, and then kind of around 13, 14 is when that started to shift for me. I wasn't interested in any of that stuff anymore. I kind of had thought I found this new way of life that my parents were like hiding from me, and I was like, no, I want to do this. Like, I don't want to do any of the stuff I was doing before. So it was a pretty abrupt change for me around 13. And it was pretty abrupt change for my parents, and I started kind of instantly getting in trouble too, and getting sent to these different treatment centers, and it had happened within probably a span of like 3 months. My life just looked a lot different, you know. I mean, it's hard to like encapsulate that. I guess if I had to just talk about that time period as a whole, I think I just I think I was at a place to where I really wanted to be an individual, you know, and I was a pretty rebellious kid, and I would always be like a class clown in elementary school. I look at these patterns in my life, and I definitely was trying to like have this identity, or be like, show people that I could do things on my own. And so I think when I found drugs and alcohol, it gave me this sense of identity that my parents weren't attached to, my grandparents weren't attached to. I just felt like it was something that, like, okay, like I can kind of like do whatever I want if I go this route. And, you know, I think that just spiraled. And then by the time I didn't even really know like what I was falling into until I was in it. And then I felt like I decided to do that life. Like I kind of just tricked myself into thinking that that was how my life was supposed to play out. And so it was just this downward spiral of The more I would do these things, the more my self-worth would go down, like subconsciously, and I think I never said no to anything. So anything somebody offered me a new drug, I would pretend like I tried it already, and I'd be like, yeah, yeah, for sure. So that was how every time I tried a new drug, nobody knew that it was my first time doing it. And that kind of from 13 to 15, I pretty much had tried anything and everything and kind of found what I liked, and then I was running with that every day, you know. Like cocaine and Oxycontin were daily use by the time I was 15. So I honestly might have been 14, but I think it was 15. I was 14. So that one was, looking back now, like, my family, like, we have a history of that. And my dad is sober. My mom has some of that on her side of the family. So I think she's a drug and alcohol counselor. So she deals with this a lot. And I didn't really know any of that as a 14-year-old, but so she just saw a pattern. Like, they found a little empty bag of Coke in my pocket doing my laundry at 14, and I think they were just like, oh, this 14-year-old kid. And that's what my dad was sober from as well. And so they just saw the red flag, and I think they just kind of not panicked, but wanted to be proactive with it, So in my eyes, I was like, dude, I didn't do anything, like, you caught me one time, and I think they had caught me, and then they started paying attention, and over the next like month and a half or 2 months, I didn't stop doing anything I was doing. So then they started to notice like all this little stuff about me sneaking money out of their purse, or they didn't really notice before because they didn't think anything was wrong, And so it's kind of probably like maybe a month or two after I got caught that first time is when they sent me to this wilderness program in Maine. And then I went to that for, I think, like 3 months. And then at the exact same time the next year, I went back to that program. And then that just kind of started this cycle of every year and a half, my parents would, probably after that second time in Maine is when I just started disconnecting from my family. I wasn't sleeping at home. I kind of had moved out and was just crashing with friends. So this is like when I'm like, and now I have my license, so I'm like 16, and I didn't really spend a lot of time at home anymore. Started losing touch with my brothers and my parents, and so that started this cycle of like every year and a half, my parents would like kind of trick me into coming home and get me sent away somewhere, and then I'd go away for some amount of time, like 3 months or 6 months. And that'd be good for like a couple weeks when I came home, and then it would just start this cycle again, and then I would go all the way to the end and crash and burn, and then that was kind of like the pattern, I think, in that time period.
How many different rehabs did you end up going to? Or how many times?
Five rehabs. Yeah, I think like that last time was obviously the most memorable because that's the time that's stuck with me. But I think it was like a building up process to that. Like every treatment center I went to, I definitely took something away from it, whether I put that into action or not. Like I learned about alcoholism and drug addiction. Like I didn't really know what that was until I started going to these rehabs. I learned about different programs that people go to, and then when I was the second to last rehab I went to, I met young people that were sober, which I never thought existed. I met people that were my age or younger. I was 19 at the time, so I met like 17-year-old kids with like a year sober, and 25-year-olds with like 5 years sober, and I was like, whoa, like, and they were cool, so that put that into perspective for me. That one didn't stick, but I look back on that and I'm like, oh, I kind of pulled like little bits from each thing. It was like a building up process. And then the last one that I went to, that was when I was 21, and that was kind of a, even the building up to that, there was like a month straight of me just like sitting in my car wanting to kill myself and not but being too scared to put forth any action, you know, but just being really depressed for probably a string of like 6 to 9 months, and then it really hitting a boiling point for that last month. I got out of 2 DUIs in that last month. I don't know if you even know that part. I got caught passed out in my car with a fifth of Jack in my cup holder twice before the actual DUI that I got arrested for. So that whole month was really turbulent leading up to that DUI. But April 22nd, 2012, I got in my car. I don't remember getting in my car, but I drove. I was leaving my friend's subdivision, and I was supposed to turn right or left, and I just drove straight into this guy's house. And apparently I backed up and then hit the house again, and then I pulled off and just kept driving, and none of this I remember, but this is what I was told after the fact. The guy got out of his house, chased me down. Found out later that guy was getting his house watched by the cops because he's a huge heroin dealer in the area. And these cops have arrested me multiple times for drug charges. So it took a long time in the jail for me to convince them that I wasn't there to buy drugs, or he didn't like short me on something, or they thought for sure I did it on purpose, you know. And I just, by chance, I just drove into this guy's house, and I just left like nothing happened, and I pulled over in a CVS probably to get like some Sour Patch Kids or something, and I passed out trying to get this part. I like vaguely remember. I remember being like halfway hanging out of this car, and like the door's open, but I'm kind of passed out, and this dude rips me out of the car and then hits me in the back of the head with the bottom of his gun, and then I snap out of it, and I'm laying, or I snap into it. And I look up, and I'm on the ground, and this dude's foot's on my chest, and he's got a gun in my face telling me I hit his house with my car. And I was like, no, I didn't. And he was like, look at your car. And I just like roll over, and I had my brother's car for some reason, and it was a Jeep Wrangler, and that whole front bar was just completely snapped. And that's like a 2-inch steel beam on each side, you know. So I hit this house pretty hard, and yeah, this car was mangled. The cops show up, they like tackle him off of me. I remember I got up and just started walking to my car. I was like, I was sick, he's getting arrested. And I went to go drive away. They were like, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I just turned back around, and I was like, I've never been so excited to get arrested, because I was pretty scared of this dude. He's a big dude, he was way bigger than me, and he's got a gun in my face. And so they were like, what happened? I'm like, I'm really drunk, I think I hit his house, like, can we just get out of here? So like, this guy was heated, he was super mad. And so then I don't really remember anything past that, like in the jail or anything. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the jail, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was real last night. And they come in, they tell me the story of what happened. They're like, you don't remember anything, huh? And I'm like, not really. And then they start telling me what happened, and you know, I think compounded on like the years I've had before this moment, and like the 6 months, and then like the really bad month before, I was just not in good shape at the time when this happened. And so that this happened, and I can't do anything for this day, right? I can't drink, I can't do drugs, I'm sitting in jail. So I start just kind of, and I'm on a really serious probation in Nebraska for a cocaine charge, and if I violate that, I go to prison for 3 to 5 years. And so this is all kind of going through my head, and I've violated, I'm in jail, so this is a violation. So all this is kind of going through my head, and I just feel really overwhelmed, and I feel really defeated. You know, I just feel like this is how, because I'd been getting in trouble a lot, but it just seemed like it was getting more and more out of my control. Like, I didn't want to be doing what I was doing, but I couldn't stop doing it. That was more or less what was happening for these last couple of years. The first 5 were fun for me. I was getting in trouble a lot, but there was bad moments in those for sure. It wasn't all fun, but it was like, I felt like I was wanting to do all the stuff I was doing. The last couple of years were like, I didn't want to be doing anything I was doing, and I just couldn't stop, you know. And so I just felt really defeated. And you know, I grew up, my mom is a pastor at a church, So there's a lot of things that were going through my head about just like being mad at God and questioning if he was real. And then it was almost like it was like the only thing I hadn't tried is kind of going back to church or praying or like even believing in God. Like I'd pushed away from that for so long that was the last thing I wanted to try. And I was just like, it was almost like a kind of like a spite thing too. It was like, oh yeah, all right, we'll see if you're actually real. Like if you can get me out of this, or if you can turn my life around. And I didn't verbally say this, but I look back on kind of why I prayed. I was like, it was like a last resort thing. But I know myself in that time period too, and I think I almost wanted to prove to myself that he wasn't real. So I could be like, yeah, I have no options. Like this is just who I am. So in that moment, I prayed. And I was like, God, if you're real, can you please help me change my life? Like, I don't want to be doing all the stuff I'm doing, and I don't want to go to prison, And nothing like immediately happened, but I do remember that before that prayer, my brain was going a million miles an hour, and then after that prayer, I just was able to like chill. I wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't worried. That I realize now that like this kind of peace came over me, but I didn't really know how to verbally describe what I felt like. I was like, yeah, I felt chill, but I realize now like my head stopped for the first time in a really long time, and that was a big part of why I used drugs and alcohol in the first place. Was I needed that voice in my head to just stop, and then when I got high, that would just numb out for a while, and I would be in chill, But yeah, I just felt peace for the first time, and it's funny, I didn't even know how to verbalize feeling that way. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's some more that happened after that in that first month, but more or less that was my last night drinking. I mean, I felt willingness, which I had never. I sent myself to this one. I didn't. I didn't pay. Well, and no, actually, I've paid for a lot of that now down the line. But yeah, no, I had to really convince my parents to help me go to this last treatment center. Whereas before, it was they were pulling teeth to try to just get me somewhere, like so I just didn't kill myself or hurt somebody else or overdose or. They were just worried about me before. This one, I think, I was worried about myself, and I had this willingness to try to change for the first time. So that was already different. I also chose a Christian-based rehab, which that was different. I was like, this is the only thing I haven't tried. I think that AA is important, but I think I need this. I think I need to go to a Christian one because I pushed away from God for so long that I didn't want to make my higher power like a tree. Some people, you can choose anything that's greater than yourself, really. And I knew that I believed in God, and I knew that I believed in Christianity. I just had been so. I just pushed away from that for so long that I needed to be forced into it again. Just so I could sit there and listen and do a Bible study and be open to just like paying attention. And people encouraging me to pray at night, I just needed that little kick back into that. And so the place I went was a Christian-based treatment center, and so that was different for sure than the other ones that I went to. And I think a lot of things, I guess another one that was different was a broader scope of age. I mean, we had 65-year-old men there and 18-year-old men there. All the other ones were kind of all younger. They were like 18 to 25, and then the other one was like 18. All the other ones were 18 and under, or 20 and under. But I think the main thing was things shaped up different for me at that rehab because I was willing to be at that rehab, and I was willing to do the work and be honest with myself and start to try to change. I think that was really. I mean, the place was great, and some people there really impacted my life, but it wouldn't have done anything for me if I wasn't willingly wanting to be there,
Back up
Mm-hmm.
on that one in a moment, but have you ever committed or tried to commit suicide?
No. I've thought about it a lot, but I've never tried.
You know, or have known a lot of people, knowing you having this discussion, that have either committed suicide or OD'd
Yeah.
and died.
Yeah, I guess there was kind of one time where I overdosed and I kind of could, I think I was like just trying to push my limits. But, I mean, that would be the closest thing that I ever, like, I kind of willingly knew, like, I'm going to hit a limit and something's going to happen, and I just kept going. And so that would probably be the closest thing for me. But, yeah, I mean, I have some of my closest friends in the world have attempted suicide, and some really close friends that I've had through these treatment centers have committed suicide, you know? So I think it's something that I watch what happens. I don't think I would have cared about this in the moment. If I was at a spot and I did it, I wouldn't be thinking about other people, obviously, you know? But I kind of watch what that does to all the people around, and I'm definitely glad I never took it to that extreme, you know. But I was telling Scotty the other day too, like, I think there's this piece that I just made, the self-portrait. There's like that little catch in my eyes, right, when I'm looking up, and I felt like stuff like that, like me never attempting suicide, but the amount of times I thought about it and then just never attempting it, I felt like there was this thing that was always like just keeping me from going over the edge, you know. And it was, to me, it was God, you know. I felt like he always still had his hand and he was watching over me. I got out of so many ridiculous scenarios and so many near-death experiences, and just one little difference and I would have been dead or in prison so many times, you know. And I just couldn't, it's too long of a story to even sit there and tell. And there's times where it's like a crazy near-death experience I've like completely forgotten about until somebody brings it back up, you know. That's like where my life was at. I'm like, oh yeah, we did like get shot at in that place, or we did like roll that car in the middle of nowhere because we were all blacked out and came, like, I forgot about this one story where me and my friend were driving down the street. We hit the highway median 10 times while we were driving, and then fell back asleep, and then hit it again, and then kept driving, and then hit it again. He was telling me the story, and both of our heads were split open because we kept hitting the steering wheel and he kept hitting the, like, I didn't even remember that story, you know. And so there's just like constant stories. Every day was like this new challenge of like, all right, how are we gonna navigate through this day without getting arrested or getting, you know, I don't know. It's just a whirlwind of stuff that I'm just really grateful that I don't have to deal with that anymore, you know, or put people through that anymore. So I think the suicide thing to me makes sense. You know, I understand why people get to that spot if they're struggling with drugs and addiction. Like, I just never really put any action towards that. But I mean, I felt worthless, you know. Like, it wouldn't have really changed anything for me. I would have just, that voice would have ended, and I would have been feeling some sort of peace, that's what I assumed I was gonna, you know. I just needed to stop. I just need to stop doing this, and I need everything around me to just like slow down. And I think that's kind of how that started creeping into my head, you know. I was just like, dude, there's no way I'm ever gonna stop doing this. There's only one way I can think of, and that's just like pull the plug, you know. But yeah, I never put forth any real plan to that. Yeah, I think it definitely, I don't know if it was always weighing on me or else, but it started to hit me. I mean, the more that I was disconnected from my family, and I watched how close my two brothers, Tyler and Toby, got through the period of me. We're all the same age gap, you know. But Tyler and Toby got very close because it was basically like Tyler kind of stepped in as that role of Toby's older brother, and then unfortunately Tyler didn't really have his older brother around, you know, very much. And there was things that I did that were that I felt very shameful of, just like stealing their stuff to pawn it and convincing them to do these certain things for me. Like I think I had Toby fake my drug test. He was peeing in cups for me all the time, and like, so it was a lot of stuff of what I kind of exposed them to, and like bringing drugs around them a lot. But that was another reason why I did try to my best to not be home, because I was trying to at least not put them into my situation. I was trying to like keep everything away from them as much as possible. But in turn, that just made me, I was just never there. I was never around for my brothers. And I think it was something that took a while I mean, they forgave me pretty quickly, you know? And I think once they saw that I was actually, it was actually something that I was trying to stick to this time, they started to kind of like trust me a little bit more again and like open up to me a little more. But it was definitely like a weird dynamic for a while between my parents and me and my brothers and me. But we've always been really close. I think that time period put a big strain on the family, but I think they were just excited that stuff was changing, so they were pretty receptive to me coming back in the family, and like pretty accepting and just like and trusting. They like started to trust me again pretty quick. I think like 6 months into me being, so I don't remember a lot of times where I like wanted to do something and they didn't trust me to do it, you know. I think they could actually just tell that I was like a lot more serious, you know. Yeah, I think that's something that's always been really important for me. There's like a couple key factors of things that really helped turn my life around and start to give me a sense of self-worth, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and then also just a sense of relief that I don't have to do all this stuff on my own. And that's like, that's faith and my art, you know, and those are kind of the two, and my family. So there's like three main things that have really helped me, like, it's given me like a sense of enjoyment and happiness through life, but it's also given me a sense of grounding and like stuff that, you know, art is not the most important thing in my life. It is like something I'm really passionate about, and I work a lot, you know, but I've started through my faith, I've understood that art is not the only thing that matters in my life. If I didn't have my faith, I would be like one of these hermit artists that, you know, maybe my art would be a lot better, but I don't think so, you know, like I would just feel like I would go so far into that. And I think my faith allows me to show me that there's more to life. Like my family is, you know, a key factor in that. And, you know, I think like using my platform for other things other than financial gain, or not even financial gain, but just like it's all about me, you know, and getting all the recognition for stuff. That's not my main goal with art either. And I think if I didn't have faith, that probably wouldn't be a main focus of mine. And if I didn't have faith, it wouldn't be a main focus to work, you know, with Premiere and be able to go teach kids around the world. Like none of that stuff would matter to me if I was very focused on self still. And I was a super selfish person before I had faith. And so I think like art has played a huge part in my recovery, but without the faith, like none of this would ever be happening, you know. And I think it also allows me to have balance with this new passion and obsession that I found. I mean, art was really an obsession because I went from an addiction to one thing, and I needed to fill my time with something, you know. And then I found this thing that I just became obsessed with, you know. And it was a healthier obsession. It's not killing me, you know. But I need that sense of balance as well, and that's like faith and the family are really important to me to kind of balance my life out. So I started drawing in that last treatment center. We had this counselor named Big John, and so I drew Big John one day. I don't really know why I did, but he was like sitting there talking to us, and we were all like sitting around in this circle, and I just like started to zone out, and I just started to draw Big John, and he was like this bigger guy with a big beard. So fun guy to draw for sure. Like, and he was always smiling. He was always super happy. And so somebody saw that I was drawing Big John, and then the whole rehab started watching, and Big John was like, "What is going on?" And so I just turned it around and showed him, and he was like, "Oh, that's sick!" Like he loved it, so he put it up on his door, and then it became this thing where I would draw different versions of Big John every day. So I would draw like, they became like really funny, Like I would draw Big John as like. They were like, sometimes the emotions would change, sometimes his outfits and his character would change, but I just started drawing Big John all the time. And then it became like a thing too, where people were like trying to tell me what type of Big John to draw. Big John would try to guess which version I was drawing. So yeah, Big John helped. He was my first subject again. So that kind of got it to be fun, and I just started to like just doodle and mess around again. And then when I got out of the rehab was when, so I went from drawing every day in that 3 months, and then I got out and I was like, well, that was pretty fun. I kind of want to just keep drawing. But nobody really knew that I was drawing at home. So it was pretty just isolated on my own, which is important for somebody that's just getting sober. That's like the most dangerous time, when you're just by yourself and nobody's around. You're like, yeah, maybe I could get away with it right now. So that was important that I had that then, because it was something that I wasn't like, I do say it helped me fill my time, but it didn't feel like something to where I was like, oh, I just need to fill my time. Like in the moment, it was like, oh, I can't wait to draw. I was like excited to draw. But looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah, I definitely was just like needing something to fill that void and fill my time, But yeah, I think when I started doing it again at home, those were the times where like there was no like time limit. Like the one in the rehab, like I had like an hour to draw Big John, and then we would move on to the next thing. So this is the times where I would catch myself like drawing for like 8 hours in a row, and I would be like, oh my gosh, it's 5 a.m, I gotta go to bed, So that was kind of when I started to realize like that would lose track of time, and so I was like, I actually think I really love doing this. I want to try to get better at this, and that kind of started that whole cycle of trying to make it, a business and a career. Yeah, for sure. I think it didn't really come. I think it was more like of a meditation kind of for me. It wasn't so much of like I'm putting on the paper like what's going on in my head, because I was still very much like a reference type drawer. Like I would see a cool picture online, or like a cover of a magazine, and I would want to draw that. Like that was I had to give myself some time to really start developing like my own ideas. In the beginning, I would just see a picture and I was just good at references and like seeing something and drawing it. That was kind of how I always was as a kid. I didn't like make up a lot of stuff as a kid. I would just look at something or someone and be able to draw it like how I saw it, So I don't think it wasn't like getting like my emotions and my feelings down on paper as much. It was more like allowing me a time to just like not. I always struggled with the kind of like anxiety thought pattern, of like thinking too fast, too much, and not almost getting frozen because I don't end up doing anything because I'm overthinking. So art gave me a time to where I just wouldn't really think very much. It was like looking at this photo, I'm just drawing, and like I'm thinking about the present, I'm thinking about right now, and I wouldn't think about anything else. I wouldn't think about going to get high, I wouldn't think about drinking, I wouldn't think about anything. So that was like very new for me. So that it became like kind of like this meditative, like peaceful experience for me, to where I could just like turn off everything else.
Obviously.
Career, probably no. Job, yeah. Like a job, I was like, oh yeah, I think I can make enough money to like pay my rent and live as an individual person, But I didn't really. I think this. Like when we first met, my thing was always like, oh, I'll just do this till I need to get a real job,
Right.
And that was like always how I viewed it until I met you, really, and then I saw Jared, and I was like, oh, this guy actually can make a living. Like he has a family and he's doing it. Like, so I didn't really know any artists that I knew of artists that made a living, but I didn't really personally know a lot of artists that made enough money to support a family from creating art. And so I think once I was exposed to that and went to Greenville with you and Jared, that helped me be like, and some conversations with my mom, like my parents are really good in business. So I think once I saw that and then was able to like talk to my mom about stuff and understand how I could be better about budgeting and like not just be so willy-nilly with money and like understand like how to budget like per piece that was coming in. It's been a challenge for me. I'm still learning, but every year has gotten better from that sense, and just understanding how to hold on to more of my money instead of just like the more I make, the more that I spend, you know. But I think when I met you guys is really when it at least I don't know if I thought about it or if it just kind of like subconsciously became a part of my thought process, but that was definitely like a big turning point in seeing like if I pay attention to the business side of things, I don't even really have to make a ton of money, but I need to understand how to hold on to that, you know. Mm-hmm. That was what Jared and you kind of showed me, and I know from some of our early conversations of us working together, you helped get my price points up a lot, you know, and so that was like I think that was a big step too of being like, okay, well now I'm actually making a reasonable amount for these pieces to where I don't have to non-stop stay in the studio, because when you met me I was doing 7 days a week and like 14-16 hour days. Like I was non-stop drawing to try to make enough money, and I think once we were able to get to a more reasonable amount of money, I still work a lot, but it's not, I don't feel the desperation of like I cannot stop drawing or I won't make enough money, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I think that probably played another role, you know, until I was like really selling to people that had never met me. That like those kind of moments were like, okay, this is actually like kind of taking on a new form. I'm like, maybe I can sell to more people than just the people that are buying stuff for like $500, you know, like just like the getting sober thing. Like there's no one point that totally pivoted and changed my life. There's a moment that it sounds like I turned my life around and I gave my life to the Lord, and that was a big moment in my life, but I wouldn't have got to that moment without all the other stuff. And it's the same thing with my art career. Like where I'm at now and where I started, there's so much stuff that happened in there that I think something that I try my best to do is not I don't really set a lot of goals either. And I think when we met, I was setting more goals or trying, you know, I had all these things that I thought I wanted to do. Maybe it was a little after we met, and once I got like pumped up about actually being like, making it a career of mine. But I think a big part of my art journey has been kind of, I need to be open to praying about all these decisions in my life and projects that come in, and the second I try to like be like, oh no, we need to do this or we're not doing this, because I try to not like micromanage my art career and my brand that much at all, because every other aspect of my life, if I try to control that or if I'm trying to be the forefront of the decision making process, it goes downhill. So I've noticed the same thing happen in my art career if I'm trying to make these decisions based on self of like what I should be doing and what I want to do, as opposed to like what doors is God opening for me right now, and like just take a moment and don't get so stressed out about having to do the right thing or having to be the biggest artist. Or I think that's played a big role in allowing me to find peace even when things are not going that well, you know. And like I don't know, I think that's been a huge part. I try to tell that to artists that ask me about you know, just decision making, like being a business owner and an artist at the same time. Honestly, faith makes that the easiest part for me, you know. Like I feel like I don't need to make all decisions right now. I don't need to have a 5-year plan. Like I need to do the best I can do, and I need to put God at the forefront of all my decision making for my business as well as my personal life, you know. Otherwise, I'm just going to go in the wrong direction. So yeah, I think to me it was important to try to represent, like, we had talked about another self portrait that I did, and that kind of represented like where I was from and kind of like where that had more ties into like my family and just my childhood. And then this one I really wanted to make it about. I kind of struggled if I wanted to make it about recovery or like pre sobriety or post sobriety, and I kind of landed on the moment that I decided to get, you know, that I decided to get sober. And I think that I did this piece. I fabricated this like concrete circle that is basically broken in half, and the bottom half is missing. And there's a image of me looking up, and I think for me that had kind of represented. You know, I've told you in this talk right now that I felt like there was always something that just allowed me, like it was just keeping me from going over the edge and just keeping me from fully disintegrating and melting down, you know. And so to me, this broken circle where it's getting there, it's pretty much all the way gone, but it's hanging on. That kind of represents me. The canvas represents me at the moment I got sober. You know, I was still in one piece, but I was not staying that way for long. You know, and you know, I think it breaks off in my face right around my mouth, and you can see me looking up, and I think that represents this moment in the jail cell when I prayed for the first time in like 9 or 10 years, or 8 years maybe, and I just was like, you know, if there's, I'm very beaten down, I'm very tattered right now, you know, I feel like if you're real, you'll help me weather this storm and come out on the other side. And so that's kind of that moment in time where I made this piece, that this piece was inspired by, and I'm pretty excited with how it came out. I think it's pretty awesome, and I experimented with some new mediums in it. My friend Omar helped with some of the screen printing process that we did with it, so I'm excited to show people. Concrete has always, I've always felt like my life, and just me as a person, I resonate with concrete, like as a medium, you know? I'm like, this could work in telling any one of my stories that I want to tell. So I think it was, that meaning of foundation, I think, is a big part of why I felt inspired to use concrete in this self-portrait, and why I've been using it more and more over the past year. You know, kind of once I started to use it, I was like, oh, I actually love working with this, and it has it ties into a lot of the stories I'm trying to tell really well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you saw the process yesterday of just being like, I was all over the studio. We had reference photos of me, and I was like, this is, yeah, it's different doing pieces that are, I do pieces that are about my stories a lot, but I use other people as the subject, you know, and kind of mask my story behind their image. So doing one where I'm the actual person that is being shown and painted, it's like a different, it's weird, like staring at yourself and kind of, yeah, I mean, you're really actually representing your story as much as you possibly can, because you're the one that people are seeing too.
So our lives are a collaboration. And
yeah, and it's all my best friends, you know, and they were like, that's kind of how every project has been since I've really moved out here and started to really find people that I enjoy spending my time with that are also really talented. It's like made this whole process really fun out here, you know.
All right, I'm going to ask you just a few questions. These are quick, man. Like
Quick ones?
10-second answers.
All right, like my favorite color and stuff like that.
Yeah, your favorite color. Your favorite ice cream. Or your favorite
Cookie dough. Next. That's why I'm saying all these like little moments in life, like it's hard to pinpoint what led to what and why I did this certain thing. And it's another thing piggybacking on faith. Like I didn't want to move to LA. but I felt like God kept putting, every time I would pray about, I was just looking for what I should be doing after this lease at my gallery in Birmingham. I thought I was going to go downtown Detroit. I was hoping that that's where he told me to go, you know? And it just kept happening. Like, he just kept putting these things in my life to where they just kept pointing to California, and they kept pointing to Los Angeles. And, you know, all these brands would reach out, and it would fizzle because I was in Detroit. And I was just like, the more and more that it just seemed inevitable that if I didn't go to LA, I was ignoring what I felt like God was kept putting in front of me. And yeah, I think there's a lot of things, like we're sitting next to somebody that's a huge part, you know, all the friendships I've made and what I've been able to, you know, I haven't done anything like super over the top crazy in LA, like it hasn't like exploded my business, but I felt like it's made a huge impact on me as a person, huge impact on me as an artist. And I can see, like, before I couldn't see, like, I'm starting to see like these steps before I'm like, oh, we could go this route and something crazy could happen. It's kind of inspiring to see like there is so much room for growth here. Whereas in Detroit, sometimes I felt like I don't know where else we can go right now. You know, I feel like we're just going to do a lot of the same stuff, which was cool. Everything I was doing, I was excited about. But I get excited now to be able to like spend some time out here and do things bigger and better in Detroit next time I'm back. You know. The thing that I feel most challenged by is sometimes which direction I should be going. Like, there's things that are really important in my life that are happening in totally different areas. There's things that are really important in my life that are happening at the same time, and I don't know what to do. So it's been a season of that for me. Of like, I know I told you I don't like to plan things that much. I just like to go with the flow and kind of pray about it and feel out what God's trying to get me to do. And I still am doing that, but I know there's some big decisions coming up soon, you know. And so I think it's been a challenge for me to not make any rash decisions and just understand that at a certain point I'm gonna have to make them, but it's not right now. You know, and I think that's been challenging for me to accept, kind of, because I kind of just want to like, I just kind of want to overcome the challenge, and then it's not there anymore. But I think I just have to wait it out. So, yeah, there's been a lot of those. I think I've talked about this with Scotty a lot too. It's like these like jobs that lead to these other cool jobs that lead to these other cool jobs, and I think every once in a while you get like these ones that sit with you for a while. Like the LCA piece was huge for me. Like I remember when I got that, it was like just blown away that I got it, you know, and that like I'm gonna be in that arena forever. That was a big one. The Muhammad Ali one I did at Get Some Fitness, I remember that was crazy for me because I had never done anything to that scale, and just like, I remember that one stuck with me for a while. But the list goes on. Like from that moment, I feel like there's been a lot of those projects. Like the first Void piece I did was insane to me. I couldn't believe that it came out the same way that I saw it in my head. The Kobe Bryant tribute court that I just did, that one was a really fun and exciting project and a really meaningful project. So I thought that one's gonna stick with me for a while. The project I just did in Cincinnati, this collab I just did with Devin, like they're starting to happen more and more to where that's kind of why I like collaborations, and I like putting more weight into these one pieces instead of just doing a bunch of stuff on my own, because everything kind of carries a bigger impact. It's like reaching more people. It's not just like your creation anymore. You're involving like your friends and everything, and that's allowed these projects to like all start to feel like, oh, that one's like an iconic project now for me. That one's an iconic project. There's been a lot of stuff like that Biggie on cassette one was exciting for me. That was like the biggest alternative canvas I've done in a while, and the painting was a lot better than when I was doing them before. You know, I've noticed a big progression in painting for me, you know, since that 4 years ago when I came up with that concept. No. There's things out there that excite me, and I would be so excited to get those things and to be able to create those things. And or go to those places and create a piece for like in a certain area. Like outdoor murals are something that gets me very excited. Like the bigger the mural, the more exciting for me. And then also like me and Scotty have started to brainstorm more on these outdoor activations, and like I like doing massive like installations but outside that people can experience, and it becomes like that would be cool for me if something like that became like a destination spot where people would like travel to see that. So there's things that are like that, but none of those would feel like my life was complete, you know? I think, yeah, I don't think anything art-wise could ever make me feel that way.